Alright, hello everybody, I just wanted to make this video and record my thoughts on some of the latest goings on in the comics world. Of course, I've never really done a video like this and also been away for a while, so a lot of things have happened. I'm going to do another one for the movies, obviously. I don't know whether I'll do them separately or just as one video for all these big, possibly the biggest comic book superhero movie season ever this year. But I'm going to touch on things that have been going on in the comic world, or at least the ones that I have read. So the first one, because I'm going to go in chronological order here, the first one that I read was X-Men Year One. I really enjoyed this. This is one of those books that reminds me why I love X-Men. Because it went back to the base, it went back to the teenage roots of it and about them training in the school and stuff like that, and fleshed out a lot of the original five in a more... Because what they did was they took the original run, the original 66, and took them and made them modernised. They told a lot of the stories, a lot of the events that happened in it, interweaved with a lot more character drama and character stuff that you'd see in modern times and things like that, and updated them and took it out of the silly sort of writing of Stan Lee, the silly dialogue from Stan Lee's stuff, and the sort of the quaint look of that whole thing. Because of course the original comics were kind of, you know, as our review of the 60s stuff said, it was kind of silly and zany, and of its time it was definitely a Silver Age comic book, whereas this was obviously modernising and making it more in line with this could be, especially with, you know, the way that the timeline works in the Marvel Universe. This is how it is in relation to the modern X-Men comics. This is how it happened, and it lines up a lot more than modern comics, because obviously it's a lot more serious, a lot more drama based, a lot more soap opera-y. And I really liked it. The introduction of Cape Citadel, Magneto, they did everything so respectfully to the original stuff, but still made it more up to date. They told it in the perspective of Jean Grey, which kind of keeps in line with the original book. Of course, they took out a lot of the sexism and Xavier fancying Jean Grey and things like that from the original, but they kept in all the stuff that was good. And the character drama is where this thing really shines. You get to see them not only battling and meeting Magneto and the original Brotherhood and things like that, but you also got to see them hanging out with each other and becoming friends, and you got to see, you know, Jean and Scott's original relationship, which didn't start off well because he was a very serious, very sort of stoic guy that nobody really got along with. It was all based on what the original stuff had done, but obviously taking it more out of hints and one panel stuff into a whole, you know, bit of drama. I thought it was a little short for what it was. I think I would have liked more of it, but then again, I suppose you would have had, you know, you would have had to go into lots of other stuff that happened. You would have had a lot to go into the Mole Man and lots of sillier stuff if you were going to expand it more, and you wanted to keep it on more of the serious mutant stuff like Magneto and things like that. So that was all good stuff. Jean's portrayal was great. I thought that she was definitely a modern girl, and there was a couple of times, however, when, you know, when the writers try and talk in modern young person speak, and it doesn't really work, and it just, you expect them to put lol in after everything, and it was just ugh when they were doing that. But other than that, I really liked it. I really liked how her relationship with Angel was portrayed, how she was originally had a crush on him, and they were gonna, she was interested in him, but of course then, you know, Cyclops kind of comes in there when Warren shows no interest, and how he's having a lot of problems with dating human girls, because as soon as they wanted to take his top off, his angel wings would come out, so she's like, why don't you date a mutant? And that's not really occurred to him, and really she's meaning her, and he has absolutely no clue, just the oblivious guy who doesn't know, because he doesn't know how good looking he is, I guess, and he doesn't know that she's interested in him and stuff like that. So it's almost kind of the reverse of real life, where it's usually the way around with males and females. But I thought that was a really cool way to handle it. And then the love triangle that eventually happens when, of course, she ends up going off with Scott because of this awkwardness after the kiss and things like that. So that was really cool. How they eventually did get together was really good. Yeah, it was a great thing. And one of the other things I really liked about it was the Charles and Magneto relationship, because they've been so misused in the modern comics, to see it revolve around them again and to be about them, and to see them, you know, retroactively putting in the stuff that would come later and the stuff that's been revealed about their past later that's so popular now, about them being friends and stuff that wasn't there in the original Stan Lee issues, to put that in there, having it be like he's meeting Magneto in secret and going and playing chess with him while in the meantime their guys are battling and stuff. No, that was really good stuff. So overall, I definitely recommend it. It was a a solid book, and it really, if you're looking to see why the X-Men are popular and why people like them, I think this is the book to pick up, because it's got no ties to anything. It's the very beginning, and this is where they already started. If you like any of the original 5, I'd say definitely pick it up. Now, on the other side, touching on something that's very similar, but not exactly the same, in that this was about not rebooting, but retelling the original stuff to make it fit within the original timeline, but also make it make more sense with the modern stuff and tell it in a more modern sensibility. What I'm going to talk about next is a complete another reboot to retelling the early days, which is Batman Year One. Well, not Year One, sorry, that's Frank Miller. Batman Earth One, which is the reboot they did with Superman, which I enjoyed, the more kind of small villainized, some people have called it, version of Superman with Earth 1, and it's basically DC's version of the Ultimate Universe, except a lot more successful, because it's going to be these graphic novels, self-contained, good stories that really do a very good job, as this did, of retelling the origin and really making enough changes to make it enough different. I saw Captain Logan and Brian Kirk Eric's review on this, and I have to agree with a lot of their points. This is one of the best Batman origin stories you'll ever read. I think my favourite is probably Batman Begins, but in terms of comics, I think this is, because I am a Batman Year One fan, I do really enjoy that story, but I always thought, A, there wasn't enough Batman in it, and it wasn't really about him, it was more of a Jim Gordon story, and B, I thought it was very short, whereas this, though not exceptionally long, was a lot more fleshed out, a lot more about his character, and a lot more years even than that to draw upon all this history and make this, totally something different. Few points to note. I like that Martha's an Arkham, because it, again, as was brought up in my fellow YouTuber's video, it makes it so that it represents two sides of Batman's personality. Arkham represents his mad side, the Wayne family represents his more sane, his Bruce Wayne side. He's kind of, his two sides of his personality there. He's got half in madness and half in richness and sanity and humanity of him. And the way that he tied their parents' death into was a conspiracy, and he was only putting it on to stop the person who killed his parents, or the conspiracy of the man who ordered his parents to be killed, which he thinks is the mayor, which ends up being Oswald Cobblepot, otherwise known as the Penguin, and that was a great way to make an otherwise unspectacular villain most of the time a real intricate character, to make him big enough to be in the first story of his origin and to tie him into things like that. So I really like the characterization of the Penguin, how brutal he was, and the fact he was the mayor, and the fact that Batman targeted him and he had to go through the police, not just because he was a vigilante, but because the police were on the payroll, which included Jim Gordon, who was completely a different place. It was the Jim Gordon we saw at Batman Begins, but pushed further. Jim Gordon in Batman Begins knew about people on the take, but didn't say anything about it because the city was so broke, and he'd been in Gotham for years. This time he's been in Gotham for years. He tried to be the good cop, but an event that happens in his past makes it so that he joins them. He goes on the take with them, and he knows how things work, as he says to the new Harvey Bullock in this city. And so he's basically given up, and not until the end of the story, I don't want to get into too much spoilerific territory, but not until it gets to the end of the story is he the real Jim Gordon that we know, and it's because of, again, the influence of Batman that he basically says, screw this, the mayor's out of the way, my family aren't going to be hurt now, because of course his family are kidnapped when he starts looking into things, or at least Bullock does and things like that, in Barbara, who is extremely well characterized here. She's more kind of Oracle to begin with than Barbara ever was, but of course that hints of her becoming the more Barbara that we know later on, or at least the early Barbara. And that's really what was great about this, was throughout the entire thing, everybody started in a place that was like, wow, they're not the character that I know, but in the end they became the character just they had a different way of getting there. And that includes Bruce, who by the end reveals that, spoilers. Okay, I'm going to go into spoiler script. If you haven't read it, then go ahead and turn off right now. But if you don't care, then carry on listening. How he finds out that his parents' murders weren't anything to do with Cobblepot, and it was just an random act of violence, just like in the regular universe. That he basically realizes at that point he's got to remain Batman forever, and that he's going to continue to fight crime and become a legend, as he says at the end with Alfred. And speaking of Alfred, that's the main departure, as well as Harvey Bullock. Alfred was really well characterized here. They took the militant Alfred that's always been hinted at, but took away that sort of 1950s, 1940s sort of so the stereotypical English gentleman butler, took him out of it and made him more the military guy who was just happened to be a war general who was in the war with Thomas Wayne as a friend of his, and then when they get killed, he's the only guy who can take care of him, and he tells Bruce that he's his butler just to gain his trust, and not because he doesn't want to be his father, he doesn't want to be his stepfather or his surrogate father. So even though he becomes that, he takes the role, and he's a lot more active, a lot more gun touting in Bruce's life because he's the militant man. He actually helps him become Batman and trains him to become Batman more than ever in this, and I thought that was a great hint to the character. A very different character, but by the end, again, he's the butler that's helping him out. Even though he's more actively involved, he's almost pretty much Alfred by the end, and that was a great way to go about it. Speaking of which, Lucius Fox, they bring in the Batman Begins element of him making Batman's gadgets, but he's a kid and he's not got access to this thing. He's locked inside this closet and makes much more, he's not making tumblers or anything, he's just making the grapple gun and stuff like that. So that was a really nice touch with it as well. New take on Lucius Fox that I enjoyed, even though it wasn't the Morgan Freeman type, which is probably my favourite. And the most changed character is, of course, Harvey Bullock, who is, spoilers again, a TV cop. And he's come there just to get fame off the famous big city of the world, the biggest crime spree in the world, and he wants to get involved in it, and by the end, because of some of the horrific stuff he sees, he becomes the Harvey Bullock that we know. He turns to drinking, he gets more rough, and at the start, he's Jim Gordon from year one, the character who comes in and he's such a good cop and he has this idea of what a cop should be, and when he sees all these cops on the take and he sees how corrupt the city is, he responds to that, he reacts against that, and that sort of goes into his character arc. And when Jim Gordon becomes the good cop by the end, in the way, he becomes the bad cop. Not the bad cop, but he becomes a much more of a downbeat, much more cynical person because of what he saw at the hands of the villain that did things. I really liked it. I thought that it was a great retelling. Of course, spoilers again, Penguin dying and things like that. It almost felt more like a Batman movie in that I have no problem in the villains dying if you use them really well, then kill them off in a Two-Face Dark Knight type way, so long as Batman doesn't actively kill them. That's my only thing. I don't mind the villains dying, so long as their story is really told and there's nothing else you can really do with them, and you don't have Batman actively murder them. That's my thing. If they die, just kind of by accident, or in this case by Alfred shooting them, then that's fine, but you shouldn't have Bruce Wayne be a murderer, and they didn't go that way, and I thought that was really, really impressive. Overall, really impressed with this, and definitely pick it up. Now, I've been extremely positive over the last couple of ones, obviously, because they were really good books, but I'm now going to get into something which I'm kind of half and half on, which is the big summer event from Marvel, Avengers vs XMen. Of course, I got more into Avengers because of the film that came out this year. I really enjoyed that, and then of course I'm a huge X-Men fan, as you know by this channel, and most of you subscribe to me on all my X-Men videos and Batman videos and stuff, so obviously I was going to check this out. And I have, and it is one of those things that is a force, just like Schism. I feel that the issue is forced for no particular reason. Of course, Cyclops' character and the way he's becoming more like Magneto and becoming that way as sort of the rebel mutant who's just fighting for mutant kind of stuff. The fact that that Scott has basically just become Magneto now, whereas Wolverine's become Xavier, which is a bit weird, but that it's been building to this. But other than that, I thought the issue was a bit forced. They realise the Phoenix Force is coming and the Avengers need to go and basically take Hope to make sure the Phoenix Force can't get to her. Wolverine's going as far as saying they should kill Hope. That's definitely in character with him, because he was of course going to kill Jean Grey when the Phoenix was in her. So even though I feel it's a little forced, it makes sense. But the reason I'm not fully on board with this is because it's one huge battle after another, stretched out for so many issues, and just 12 issues is way too much just for one battle over one issue, and they keep having different battles over and over again because they've got so many, obviously, characters on each side and things like that. It's like one big battle after another. This is kind of Lord of the Rings with not as much good character stuff. It's the best way to put this. But it's overall enjoyable. Just some really random moments, like, again, spoilers, when Captain America throwing Wolverine off the plane, and Wolverine and Beast going back and forth between the different sides they're going to be on, and you don't know who's doing what, and they seemingly to do things randomly. Cyclops just being a total dick. I mean, I know he's been a dick, but he's been a total dick. Just the fact that he just opens fire on Captain America and the Avengers and says, "Fuck humanity," and he basically just goes from becoming the pseudo-Magneto to becoming Magneto here. And speaking of Magneto, I hope he plays a lot bigger role in this, because I know everything's going to get reshuffled out of this, and I really, really want Magneto to finally become a big character again, but maybe that's just the Magneto fan in me, and I want Xavier to become a big part of it again, which he is in the later ones. Xavier is at least his own authority in questioning Scott and things like that. I like the new ways they're using the Phoenix Force by having him possess the Five and things like that, and seeing a Phoenix version of Emma and Scott and Namor and the two Rasputins. So that's something cool and something new, and I'm interested to see where they go. But it seems like the way they're going to go is either kill off a bunch of characters and reshuffle a lot of things. And a lot of things that we've seen or what are coming with Marvel now is the Avengers Next one are going to be merged. They're going to bring the original Five back from time, so we're going to have Jean Grey and Scott, which makes me think that the modern Scott is going to die. I'm not sure about where they're going with this, but I'll keep reading, I'll keep enjoying it. It's just, at the moment, it's just an event for the sake of an event for me, but at least it's going to have huge ramifications, at least for now, and for Marvel now, they're at least going to restart and reshuffle, and the X-Men and the Avengers are going to be the centre of that. So I'm interested to see who lives, who dies, who does what, who goes where. I'm just, some of the stuff that I've seen in solicitations and stuff like that, I'm not overly excited about, because I'm fine with Jean Grey coming back after almost 10 years, but the Jean Grey from the First Class era is not the Jean Grey that we know. Jean Grey from First Class is basically Hope. Hope is the same character as Jean Grey, except Jean obviously hasn't gone through all the war and being brought up in the apocalypse and stuff like that. So, without all the experience of being Phoenix and all the things she's gone through in her marriage, she hasn't got that matureness, that world weariness that made Jean who she was at the end. We're just going to get the naive, basically Hope-esque Jean, and I don't think we need two Hopes. And I don't want to see the same I don't want to see an early Cyclops without any of the stuff. And I don't want to. It'd be interesting for a couple of stories, but I don't think I want to see it stick around for a long time. And a lot of time travel, a lot of messing up of people from different timelines, so that convoluted stuff. There's a lot of reasons why sometimes I'm turned off to a lot of the 90s X-Men stuff. The Bishops and the Cables and things like that. It's one of the reasons I don't like it. And if the X-Men universe as a whole is going to go like that, I'm not sure I'm going to enjoy it. But I'll keep on track. This is definitely a time for me to jump on and see what's going on with the books again. So we'll see where it goes. The artwork's very nice for the most part, and the fights are very good. Greg Land's artwork for me is a case of, it looks really good in stills, but the animation isn't so good. And I think it's him doing some of this, but the art here is a lot more animated than some of the older Greg Land stuff that I've seen recently. So at least that's something, or whatever they're using. But no. Definitely, I'd say pick it up, but only pick up the core books. That's all I'm reading. You don't need any of the superfluous stuff. You get enough what you need out of the core books, but it is just a big fighting book. I'm going to warn you, it is just a big fighting book with very little character stuff. And when there is character stuff, it's sometimes good and sometimes bad. So, alright then, so that will do it for my thoughts on comics area now. Just kind of a quick sort of wrap up. I'm sure I'll go in depth on more stuff in the future. And I'll see you next time for possibly a movie one.